Hey guys, this is Mitch, and we are back to finish up the 1992 miniseries Lobo's Back. We've been through heaven and hell, we've seen Lobo reincarnated a couple of different ways, and now we're going to get to see how it all plays out. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to support me a little bit as an artist, what you can do is in the description, there's a couple of links, and if you go and subscribe on my Patreon, that'll give you access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube stuff before it gets uploaded to YouTube, to a few Patreon exclusives, so that's worth checking out. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for some commissions. So, Lobo's back. So what have we seen up until now? Lobo confronted Lou, the new badass on the block, who turned out to be a little bit too much for the main man, who fragged him there and then. Lobo then went to the afterlife, tried out heaven, tried out hell, didn't really fit in either one, surprise, surprise. Ended up getting reincarnated, first as a woman, got himself scragged, and sent back up to heaven to try again, then got reincarnated as a squirrel. That happened in issue 3. That one didn't last nearly as long, though, so ended up back in the afterlife, where it turns out they've had enough of him. They're not going to let him just walk all over him anymore. They brought out the big guns, and now it's Lobo versus heaven. And if we look at the cover here, this may look a little different to you. This doesn't look like a Bisley, and that's because it's not, actually. We've had Simon Bisley every issue up until now, but he didn't get this issue in. I'm not sure why. I didn't find any reason why he wouldn't have. I assume it might be a time thing, previous commitments, that kind of thing. He did already seem like he was kind of rushing the last few issues anyway. So this one is actually going to be taken over by Christian Alamy, who is a name I'm not familiar with. And at first I was kind of disappointed by that, but actually, having looked through it, I mean, he can't match Biz, but man, does he ever give it a good shot. So I can't really shit on the guy, because he's bringing it in this issue, whoever he is. I mean, like, even starting on the cover here, it's, it's obviously not a Bisley, but it's not a bad try at a Bisley style, really. He's got the over muscle, he's got the veins, he's got some of the hyper detail in the forearm, which is, I mean, a Bisley trademark. The hair's about right. Bisley would probably go for a bit more detail. He'd maybe make it look a bit more, I don't know, just a bit more cinematic. We got a couple of cool painted covers in the first 2 issues. But I mean, this is a pretty good attempt, I gotta say. So, let's get into it. And heaven is getting ready for the war in heaven. So you might recall leading up to this, I've been saying how we haven't got a whole bunch of ultra-violence up until this point. I think we are going to get it now. It is a bit of a drag, like I said, that it's not Bisley delivering it, but with a guy going all out, you know what, I think we'll give him a shot. And I mean, that's a pretty good Bisley-esque Lobo to start with. And I mean, he's filling in all the background detail. I mean, it's a more coherent background than we've seen at any point up until now. So give him props for that. This is some good looking stuff here, this tech. And the supervisor, who we've seen slowly devolving over the course of the series here, is going to get a little bit of a breakdown from his chief guard here about what sort of defenses they have prepared for Lobo. We find out what's been happening to the new arrivals, because when Lobo arrived in the afterlife, where there should be a decades or perhaps centuries long line, nobody was waiting. Turns out the new arrivals have all been funneled through limbo to the agnostic eternal waiting area, and they can read golf magazines until it's all over. So that's what you get if you're agnostic. I mean, if they can mix in a few comics, I'd be down. And while they're discussing this, turns out there's a security breach on Cloud 9, where the Krishnas have broken through. So that's the first wave Lobo here has to deal with. And again, it's that's a pretty good approximation of some Bisley, if you're not Bisley himself. We even got some pretty good lighting on Lobo himself. The hair's a bit more nuts than we usually see it. That's okay. He's going to throw in some of those Bisley ink blots we've been seeing too. And these could be Bisley characters. Like I said, he's really going for it. And just, maiming a whole bunch of Hare Krishnas. Hare Krishnas. Sorry, my bad. And just smash them, move on, and get ready for the next wave. Where this is like the first wave of cannon fodder from Heaven's troops. And he's just going to cut through them like a lawnmower. Gets reminded again that he can't kill people in heaven because they're all already dead. That's not going to stop him from trying, but he figures, hey, at least he can do is he can mess him up so bad he won't enjoy eternity. So that's all that really matters. And yeah, like that's some pretty good ultraviolence to kick things off with. Nice and somewhat cartoony, but still detailed. I mean, it has that flair that you kind of want from this comic. And I mean, really, it comes down to, I guess, that the layouts are still Keith Giffen. So, I mean, theoretically, we shouldn't really be losing that much except for the detail level, right? And yeah, so Lobo's just going to kick his way through, heads flying, just explosions of blood. Got a head, look at that shit. Got a head stuck on his forearm. Like a good year or two before Bart Sears would do it in Violator. That's some good shit. And the cannon fodder are going to press forward. And they try and bolster their courage and go, we're immortal, Lobo can't kill us. Like, yeah, it's just that eternal life without a face kind of loses its appeal. And Lobo's going to get ready for a game of Hide the Marble Column. That does sound enticing. Sure. And we get here that he's forcing them back. The combined religions of the world are trying to keep Lobo out of heaven, and it's not working. So now they're going to get ready for some precision bombing. Like this, yeah, this growth is just getting, like, just unpleasant to look at. And we get a fallback strategy here. If it doesn't work, I want him herded to the nearest R unit. And we can probably guess that that's the nearest resurrection unit. So if none of this pans out, fuck it. Just eject him back into reality. But like, this is a good amount. I'm not sure how I haven't heard of this guy, to be honest. This is a good amount of detail. I wonder if he can produce this kind of work when he's not working off of somebody else's layouts. Maybe that's it. And yeah, batter up. Time to knock off some heads. So this is where we get the payoff for the last few issues. Lobo has an infinite supply of victims, basically. And this looks like it should be somebody specific, but I can't quite tell who it should be. I mean, I don't know DC execs or editors or whatever. That would be my guess, though. And we even get some Buddhas, but spelled a little differently. I like that. That's fun. And they get the order to retreat. At first, it seems like they're going to try and lure Lobo back into the chamber, but no, they're just clearing the way for the air cavalry. Lobo manages to pick up one of the guns, because of course all of heaven was pretty heavily armed, and just starts picking them off. Pretty good stuff. And more than this particular tech can handle. So now they have to try and herd him to the reincarnation division, because nothing else is working. And his chief guard is worried that if this doesn't work, he's just going to come back up again, and he'll do the same thing, and he'll probably wipe us all out. But this time he goes for good. We've seen to it. Yeah, like this is almost like Fabry-esque, some of this. I think of like some of the Preacher specials that I think Fabry illustrated. So, naturally, the air cav have been no match for Lobo as well. They got a couple of shots in here and there. All that's left is this one little cherub got his leg shot off and doesn't put up much of a fight and isn't able to really give any information before he's scrunched. And now it's time for Heaven to roll out the big guns. With Nick Torquemada and the Howlin' Inquisitors, accompanied by the Gospel Happy Joes of Confession Company. And that's a pretty killer splash page, I gotta say. It does still have some Bisley flavor with some of the, it's kind of Frazetta-ish rendering. It's impressive stuff. Is Bisley inking, maybe? No, it's all this Christian Alamy guy. Not bad at all. I mean, there were a few guys around this time who were drawing in this style. In 2000 AD, actually. So, coming over from England. I mean, Fabry was kind of one of them. There was another one. He did what was that video game series? Loaded, I think. I don't know for sure if they were all aping off Bisley, although I would kind of have to assume, considering Bisley was aping off Frazetta. But I mean, it's a great look, and if you can pull it off, by all means, you should. And yeah, like nice amounts of detail everywhere. This is more detail than Bisley was able to provide leading up to this. And naturally, Lobo's going to lead with a kick to the gonads, followed by a good old-fashioned neck twist. and then confronted by yet another wave, because there's always another wave, particularly in heaven. And it turns out it's the God Squad. So we've got some Odin here. We've got Artemis. What could be the Christian god, although it's probably more likely either Zeus or potentially Jupiter. And then Poseidon. Ra, I suppose. And Buddha, maybe? I'm not sure who that one is. Oh, and Shiva, I guess? Although I think Shiva's six-armed. I'm not sure if that's maybe a different one. I'm not that up on my mythology, I gotta say. And they command Lobo to hold. And cease thy infernal tumult, lest I smite thee where thou standest. And, of course, that's not going to stop Lobo. He's going to charge right in. And he's going to teach these gods what smiting's all about. First, grabbing Poseidon by the mustache. That's some pretty good shit. And then punching out his fragging eyeball. And ripping off what I assume is Shiva's arms. That feels like it could have been done a little bit grosser, but still pretty good. And it looks like Artemis is next. And then we cut to above, where somebody is watching Lobo just mow down the other gods and having a grand old time. We never learn who, except the angel calls him Sir. So I don't think we can go so far as to say that God is in Lobo's corner, but he certainly seems amused by his antics anyway. And even talks a little bit like him. With his ha-ha, fragging ha. So Lobo has made his way through the God Squad into the facility, and now he ends up near the R unit, which is where he wanted to be. Where there's one last singular artillery position waiting to finish him off. And this, they did mention earlier, is basically an R-beam. So here, they've rigged a protection unit here. All we have to do is lure him in and zap him right back out. So that's what this one's going to do. They fire. I like this little dude here. Just hits the one button with a zap and a poff, not a poof. Very different things. And yeah, just spilling all over this dude. That's gross. So what happens here? We come back right to the end of issue 1. The last page of issue 1. Where Brother Feces has blown the main man in half. And declares them the toughest, meanest, orneriest sons of bastages in the whole fragging universe. And he defies anyone to say they ain't. And, yeah, Lobo now is going to say they ain't. So, pulls his torso up, throws a knife in his head. And that's going to do it for Lou, at least. Catches his gun and makes short work of Brother Feces. Pretty good. It's not a copy. Like, it's not a photocopy. Did what he could. Couldn't quite get the detail level, but I mean, he's even got the same kind of marks in the background indicating like scaffolding or, just like debris left over somewhere. Did the same kind of coloring, got some ink spatter, not quite as much, but pretty close. So yeah, not a bad job. And now Lobo is happy because he's finally home, all safe and sound and not quite in one piece. So gives himself a piggyback ride and goes wandering around in search of somebody with a staple gun. And Kelly Jones did a Dead Man series, eh? That just looks gross. That could be worth checking out at some point. Kelly Jones is never a bad idea. I mean, you'd have plenty to talk about, right? So we cut back for our final page with the supervisor, who is just now a mass of pustules. And we get a memo from the desk of Derek Dude, the supervisor, regarding Lobo, aka the main man. CC, all level 1 gods, goddesses, devils, and death. Under no conditions is the individual known as Lobo to be collected. His file has been categorized as untouchable, pursuant to Clause 27C, Paragraph 7, colon 1 to 15 of the Immortality Brief of 12 BC. Thank you for your kind cooperation in this matter, Derek Dude. So, in case it hasn't been stated before, Lobo is not allowed to die anymore. He is not allowed to reach the afterlife. They never want to have to deal with him again. And, let's see, Doomsday is coming. When was this? This is November. Oh, that's a bit later than the last issue. No, last issue came out on time. The gap was in between issue 2 and 3. Issue 2 came out in June. Issue 3 came out in October. So that was how long I guess it took to get Bisley to finish. issue 3, which was pretty good detail level, but not exactly his best. And then they had to get it finished up, I guess. You can't have a 3-issue gap when you're promising for it to be monthly, unless you're Image. And even then, only for a little while longer, maybe like another year. So what else have we got? We got some Spectre, which is something I never checked out. And I hear fairly often is pretty good. I never checked out any of the old DC comics, really. I mean, like a couple here and there, but for the most part, nah. And Candyman is coming out, man. It's not a bad movie. Under Siege, that is a bad movie. Okay. But it kind of introduced us to Tommy Lee Jones. And then we got sick of him eventually. Okay, so that was the Lobo's Back series. And I mean, for 4 issues, that was pretty good, I gotta say. You got a bunch of action. You got, I mean, it's like every book has quite a few funny moments in it. You got some Simon Bisley. Maybe not Simon Bisley at his peak or anything. Even for pencils and inks, this was more like 50% Simon Bisley some of the time. But, I mean, you know, we still got some great images in there, and I'll take whatever Bisley I can get. Although, if you really want to see some good Simon Bisley, I would say either check out one of his one-shots for pencil and ink, so something like the Paramilitary Christmas Special. Or if you really want to see Biz at his best, I would recommend checking out anything he's painted, which is a fair few comics. I don't have a ton of them myself, although I do have a copy of Batman Judge Dredd around here somewhere. I couldn't find it in time to put it up for this particular video, unfortunately, so I'll put up a couple of double-page spreads in the meantime. But I mean, if hopefully, assuming that I can find something I can use, you can kind of see the ridiculous level of detail that Biz would put in on every page, and just the crazy visuals. So that'll be something I'd like to revisit at some point, assuming I can find it. But yeah, as far as Lobo's Back goes, that's a pretty good 4-issue series. I would definitely recommend it. Even when you're not getting Bisley, you're getting some pretty good art by a guy whose name I've already forgotten. So, I mean, good. Christian Alamy. That's his name. I should look him up. He's probably pretty good by now, assuming he's still drawing. So yeah, but that's going to do it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next video is coming out. Go and subscribe on my Patreon. That'll give you access to everything I do, from the Blood Force pages and finished comics to the YouTube videos before they come out on YouTube, and some Patreon exclusive content as well. Also, if you go over to my Instagram and follow me there, I'm dropping a couple more Inktober pieces over the next couple of days, so go get in on the last few of those. And once I'm done those, I would DM me for some commissions, because I'll have some free time. Yeah, that's going to do it for this. Thanks again for watching the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.